In this first lesson, the auditory connection is different from the following lessons because we want to teach students the alphabetic principle, that letters are representations of our speech sounds. So in order to do this, we want to show them that we can use the letters to build words. And so rather than teaching students random letters and sounds, we're doing this in the context of building a word. So we'll begin with a really simple word, at. Now, because at is sort of abstract, we need to put it into context by using in a sentence. So we'll ask the students to repeat the word at. They'll repeat at. And then we'll say, we would use the word at in sentences such as the cat is at the door. It shows where the cat is. Now on the next page, we're going to go ahead and we're going to build the word at. And I'm going to show you how to do that. On slides like this where you have letter tiles, you want to make sure that these slides are in edit mode. So when it's in edit mode, you'll see that there are the little thumbnails on the left side, and then you'll be able to manipulate the tiles. If you have it in present mode, you won't be able to manipulate them. So that's just something to know when you come to these particular slides with the letter tiles. So you're going to begin by telling the students that you're going to show them how to build the word at. And to do that, we need to have letters for each of the sounds in at. Now, the really important thing when you're doing this with students is we don't want to segment for them. So we don't want to say, we're going to build the word at. We don't want to do that. We want the students to segment. Now, this is very difficult for beginning learners, and they're going to need lots of support to do this. So what you're going to do as the teacher is you're going to drag those sounds out. So you're going to go ahead and point. So I'm using my laser pointer here, but you could point with a finger or a laser pointer if you're maybe working virtually. But what you would do is point, and I like to have numbers there because it helps students understand that this is the first sound, this is the second sound. They understand numbers, so this really helps them kind of sequence the sounds. So we're going to point to the line with the number, and we're going to say, we're going to build the word at, and you're going to have to repeat that throughout this process. Now, one thing you can do to support students, because at this point in their development, they probably can't hear the sounds. Some kids can, but many of them will not be able to hear two distinct sounds of a and t. So what you can do is you can help the students feel the sounds and explain to them that if they put their hand under their chin, they can feel their chin drop, and when their chin drops, they're saying a different sound. Kids can also be thinking about what is their mouth doing. Every time the lips or the tongue move or the jaw drops, we have a new sound. So oftentimes with kids that can't hear the sound, they can feel the sound. They can put their hand on their lips. So if they're saying a sound like they can feel their lips are closed. If they're saying a vowel sound, they can feel their chin drop. They can feel their jaw open. If they're saying a sound like the sound, they can feel their tongue is touching the top of their mouth. So every time something changes in their mouth, they can feel there's a change, that's a new sound. So that's one way to support students as they're improving their phonemic awareness. They can feel how the sounds are changing. So if you're instructing the students, you're going to say to them, we're going to build the word at. What's the first sound we hear in at? And we can really hold on to that ah. That helps the students hear it. Again, they can feel their jaw drop, and the students will be able to give you ah. Now, not every student in the room will hear it, but many of your kids will be able to hear the ah sound. At that point, you're going to prompt them. You're going to show them the tiles. Which of these shows ah? Now, if the students don't know, then you can just point to it and say, this shows ah. Now, at this point, I would not use the letter names because that can be confusing, especially when we're learning to read and spell. We want to focus on the sound during reading and spelling tasks. So we point to it and we say, this is ah. Go ahead and we're going to drag this and we're going to say ah. Now, if you're doing this with a class of 20 kindergartners, the students don't need to have the tiles. You can be modeling this on the board while the students are watching you and they're participating by giving responses. So you're constantly wanting them to tell you what they hear, have them repeat the sound. So they're participating, but they're not necessarily moving the tiles. If you're working with a student one-on-one or in a small group, then sure, giving them tiles makes a lot of sense, but it can be difficult to do with a whole group. So just to keep that in mind, the students don't necessarily need to be dragging, but you would want them to be saying the sounds. So you would prompt them, go ahead and as I drag the tile, you say the sound, say ah as we're dragging. Ah, so that's our first sound in at. What's the second sound in at? Notice how I'm really emphasizing the t now. At. What do we hear? What is our mouth doing? Which one is t? This is t. We're going to drag this and we're going to say t as we drag it. T. Now let's look at each sound again. I'm going to point to the sounds and you tell me the sound. What's this sound? Students all say ah. Great. What is this sound? T. Let's put it together. At. At. Great. We just built the word at, and then we just read the word at. Now, at this point, the students are going to take out their whiteboards and you'll prompt them to draw 2 lines, and you'll show them, you'll model how do you do that, how big should the lines be. You're going to draw 2 lines, and then you're going to move these tiles up and say to the students, okay, now it's going to be your turn to write these letters and spell this word at. I'm going to move up the tiles and you're going to tell me the sounds as I move them. So tell me the first sound. Ah. What's the second sound? T. Let's put it together. At. At. As in the cat is at the door. Now, at this point, some students will come to you with lots of knowledge because they'll have been to preschool and they may very well already know some of these letters. They may have also learned how to form them. Regardless, you're going to model it explicitly at this point. Now, we are going to get into more in-depth handwriting, but at this point, you're just going to kind of give them a quick model. I'll show you up here, and you'll just say to them, okay, watch me as I write the letter that shows ah, and you can prompt them with some oral cues. Look, I'm going to go around, push up, pull down, ah. Now you try it, and you can prompt them again as they're doing it. We're going to curve around, push up, pull down. That's ah. Now we're going to write the letter T. Watch me. I'm going to start at the top, pull down, slide. Now you try. Start at the top, pull down, slide. And this is t. And then let's read it. This is ah. This is t. Let's put it together. At. So you can see through this process, the students are constantly going back and forth between blending and segmenting, and identifying those individual letter sound correspondences when they are segmenting those words. So in doing this word building task, we have introduced the first 2 letters, exposed the student to blending and segmenting, and begun teaching them the alphabetic principle that letters are pictures of the sounds we say in order to speak. Speaking is what's natural. Speech is natural for students. Reading is not. So by starting with speech, by starting with words they know, and then helping them build those words, it gives them context. So this will be the very first lesson when you're introducing letters A and T.